How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, great discussion today. 5 things you need to know before choosing a career in corrections. We know a lot of people right now that are trying to enter the career of corrections. And what do? They go on YouTube, they look for articles in Google, whatever it is, just to get a taste of what this profession is about. Maybe even sometimes they find themselves on Facebook, connecting themselves to correctional officer groups or correctional groups on an effort to find out about the profession before they get in. I think this video will complement what's already being offered. I think it's great for us to get an understanding of what this career is about. And notice I said career, not job, but we'll explain that in one of our 5 tips. But basically, these are 5 things you need to know before entering the field of corrections. My guest today is going to be Russ Hamilton. But before I bring him on, let me introduce our sponsors. First, we have American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to get a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk, and they are working on doing programs for people in the corrections profession. So this could actually help you get that higher position, because some positions do require a college degree supplemented with experience. Experience is key. Education will never supersede experience, but some people do require that on the technical side. So having said that, if you guys get a chance, please check out American Military University. We also have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That book is available. It's available on Amazon. Link to that is in the description. That book is used for training all across the country. I'm very proud of that book. And then my next book is coming out. It's coming out from publishing company Blue 360 Media. If you guys get a chance, please check out the website. The link to that's in the description. And the book is called How to Succeed in Corrections, Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison. It's got tons of advice, not just from myself, but from other professionals in the field. I printed out my manuscript today. There it is. The book itself is about 644 pages. But just tons of information. I mean, guys, I was talking to someone today and they had all these concerns, and I was able just to say, you know what? And I sent them a few pages from the book that answered pretty much their concerns. It's amazing how much this book covers through years of just me evaluating my own experiences, communicating with people on my way home who was able to help me dive deeper into this. Also, the many years of doing Tier Talk and having guests on the show and just our deep level discussions. That's what led to this book. And then I've always believed in having our own voices heard, but also having the voices of, us, the community of corrections. So that's why I always make sure that each one of these passages have a quote from another professional in the field. And I want to show you a quick little video I put on Facebook about the book, so you have a little idea of what the book offers. So bear with me. I'm going to play it right now. That's me. All right, guys, I printed out the final manuscript for How to Succeed in Corrections, Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison. It's pretty thick. Now, mind you, this is not double-sided. So when you get the book, it will be around 644 pages. It's available through Blue 360 Media. It's available for pre-order right now as we speak. It will come with an app, an ebook, and the actual soft cover book. And just to give you a taste of what this book offers, it's got tons of advice, but it also has a chance for you to make an impact. I'll give you an example. You could see here, let's say chapter 27, it talks about workplace gossip destroys morale. You'll see right below that a quote. Now, that quote comes from a professional in the field. In this case, it's coming from Greg Stevens. He's a correctional officer out of Connecticut Department of Corrections. Then you see my passage that supports it. The key thought behind that passage, which is highlighted in gray, and then you can add your notes, and then you can add what value or advice can you add to this. And that is done for each passage. And this is how we create our legacy. So in the end, after we read it, after we provide our input, our value, we pass it off to those that we feel have the greatest potential. Get your book now. There it is. All right, let me get Russ on. Russ, how you like that little Facebook reel?
Man, I'm loving that, Anthony. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good that this book 360 Media picked it up because on Amazon, it just wasn't what I wanted. Unfortunately, at that time, I had no publisher that was willing to take on the book. And then finally, Blue 360 Media, which is the #1 publishing company for law enforcement, said they were willing to do this. They believed in it. I don't know. They made it truly professional. It's a good sized book. You'll see when you get it. And it comes out August 31st. So I'm excited. There's so many tips here. And I believe even when I retire, I can maybe start going on conferences and focus more on what this book has to offer. Again, I retire within a little over 4 years. All right, Russ, you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Not at all, Anthony. My name is Russ Hamilton. I'm a retired and former sergeant with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I also have worked as a senior juvenile correctional officer, and I currently work for a private company where we do casework for a local probation department and a local county jail where I am a case manager.
And how's Keepers of Chaos on Facebook going? Keepers of Chaos, K-A-O-S.
K-A-O-S, yes. Keepers, it is the site for you to be if you are in the correctional field and you want to have a support system that teaches you, trains you, looks at the impact of our history and does everything from a professional standpoint. There is no other forum like it, in my opinion, on social media out there. And let's see, for this week, I also want to say today, I just finished the 1,776 push-up challenge for wounded warriors in the armed forces. So I'm proud of that. And so I wanted to get that out there because that was my big to-do for the past month, was getting 1,776 push-ups out of the way. And I raised $300 for them.
Hey, congratulations. Well done, man. That's a lot of push-ups.
It is.
And guys, with the way the world is changing, the reason why Russ chose to spell chaos, K-A-O-S, is because it stands for keeping all offenders safe. No, not at all. If someone asks, you can say that.
No. I think I may go down that route, but I think it may be something more along the keeping all officers safe.
Yeah, I kind of figured. just a little bit of a joke. Hey guys, so again, this will be a great topic. So let's get into it. So again, the topic itself is 5 things you need to know before choosing a career in corrections. First thing off the bat, you notice I said the word career. That's because this isn't a passive job. It's an intentional career. Everything about corrections is intentional. It's a career because it offers opportunities. It's challenging. I mean, we'll get to that very shortly. But the reason why I don't like the word stepping stone is because I always felt that stepping stone it makes you feel inferior. Like, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that not to have dreams. Of course you could have dreams. And if those dreams take you elsewhere, that's great. Bravo, we'll support you. But it's not because you're stepping on us to get there. It's more of a partnership. I just see stepping stone. When people say stepping stone, it's like any move outwards is a move upwards. And I never agreed with that. When I was in LA, there was a sheriff. And the term stepping stone has been used widely across corrections because people wanted to invite people in the profession. So what they did was they said, hey, but come to corrections and work the jail. It's a great stepping stone for other law enforcement jobs. And then people are wondering why nobody wants to stay in here as a career. It's like, well, did you see your video? Your video pretty much says we're a stepping stone. So of course it's not a career video. So I remember the sheriff took me out to eat and he said, Gangi, you're making me right now, which he did, redo his video, because one of the things he put in the video that he thought would help get a push for people to be in this profession is by pointing out that it's a stepping stone into other law enforcement fields. And then he was wondering on the back end, why doesn't people want to stay? It's right there. It's right in what you're promoting. You're promoting the field of corrections as a stepping stone, which for me, it's not going to give you the career mindset you want from the people that are coming in. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, of course. Corrections is its own thing. It's its own brand of law enforcement, and it's different from most of the other ones out there. I understand, people, if it's your dream to be out there on patrol and you want to, get some type of experience, I understand using that. But ultimately, what we want to do, our facilities, our departments, and so forth, is to be able to invest in that training dollar that doesn't go anywhere, right? Because we want those training dollars to stay at home, not be using all those training dollars to feed the system of all of those other great and needed departments out there. But we have our own thing that we need to do and that we need to satisfy, because all of those other departments out there are in one way or another serviced by us, because we are the stopgap where all of that activity ends, and the sentence for people to be held accountable, to get the rehabilitation, to learn a vocation, and to otherwise be reintroduced into society begins.
Yeah, and I also think for the stepping stone mentality, I believe it kind of takes people off of the now. Like, I mean, if I went in thinking that corrections is just a stepping stone, I may limit myself from looking at the opportunities corrections has to offer, whether I'm looking to go laterally into a investigative division or a specialized unit, or whether I'm looking to move up through the ranks or grab a hold of admin. I mean, whatever is within that specific department that you're in. If you go in only think of it as a stepping stone, you don't embrace opportunities. And also, even if you decide to, I don't know if you go at it 100%, because if let's say if I always thought that my dream is to be elsewhere, but I'll just try this. If I fail, I could say, well, I don't want to be here that much anyway, so I don't care if I make rank, because one day I'm going to be this. And I'm like, nah, burn your boats. Like, and what I mean by that, I know people are afraid to say that, but I'm thinking, like, when you know that this is your career, you tend to be more passionate when you seek things. And either way, it becomes an opportunity to grow. Yeah, I may not have made rank, but that's okay, because I learned a lot during the process, and I'll be better at it next time, as opposed to having that excuse, well, yeah, I know I didn't make rank, but I'm not planning on staying here anyway. Think of the difference in that. When you have a career mindset, every chance that you try, even if you don't get it, becomes a chance to grow and fight for it the next time. But when you don't have that career mindset and you're kind of looking elsewhere, you don't always give it the full out effect. And then what happens is when you don't get it, it just becomes an excuse. It's like, yeah, well, it's all right. I'm not planning on staying here anyway. No, I like the people that they go at it full force. They know it's a career, and they are persistent with chasing after what it is that they want. And every no they know gets them closer to the yes that they want. They don't look for an excuse. They just, okay, I got no this time. I'm going to better myself, and I'm going to do it again and again. And they just don't give up trying. That's why I kind of say burn the boats. But I think for me, when it comes to that stepping stone, what I mean by that is you want people to come into this profession with a career mindset. So again, if you're going to come into corrections, corrections is an intentional career. It's not a passive job. So again, if you're entering corrections, enter with a career mindset, which is about growth, development, seeking opportunities, and just seeing this as a career for what it is. And you agree with that, Russ, right? On all levels.
Oh, absolutely. That's what corrections really truly is crying out for, is we need people that are willing to stay. And I know that not everyone is going to. That would be short-sighted. But I mean, we want the bulk of our workforce to be in it for the long haul. When we're in it for the long haul, we provide a better product. When we provide a better product, everyone is that much more safe, inmates included, and we're able to maybe do some things that are more well suited to serving society as a whole.
Yeah, and as I said, again, with the career mindset, just allows you to see more. I think when you go in with a job mindset, you limit yourself. And again, is that 100%? I don't know. I just think that's from my perspective. I love this, Russ. I'll have you go first, but be yourself. I know a lot of people will be like, well, it depends on who you are. Well, let me just explain what we mean by be yourself. Russ, what's your thoughts on be yourself?
Really, truly, what our profession cries out for is, a broad range of talent, and not everyone should be the same in any respect. We need a bit of diversity out there, and you're not going to come into this profession and you're not going to make it and be effective by trying to fake it. Inmates are going to pick up on that instantly. Let me tell you something, that correctional officers are going to pick up on it even quicker than the inmates will. And so, trying to be fake, to be phony, to befriend people that you have no intention of actually being friends with, to try and, pretend that you're something that you're not in front of the inmates is not key to developing yourself professionally. Now, is there some honing and things that you're going to have to do? Yeah, you're going to have to put yourself against that whetstone and make yourself so much more sharp. There has to be, that element for personal growth, but there has to be something at the base. There has to be something at the core of that person that's in that position that's useful in corrections, and it has to be authentic. Without some authenticity, we really don't have much else to work with.
Yeah, and I want to mention something when it comes to be yourself. It's in my book. The academy, believe it or not, this is for officers, but this would also apply to the civilians, at least the train of thought can. We cultivate, we don't really transform. I believe that the people that are coming into this profession have potential, and they should be hired off that potential, which means that they could be hired on what we can grow them into, as long as they have a strong enough foundation. I think what made it hard for the academies recently is because we've been desperate for numbers, that we put a lot of stress on the academy to transform individuals. And the problem is, I find that to be very hard, in some cases almost impossible. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I look to cultivate. In corrections, a lot of people may feel that you have to be this ultra aggressive person. I don't believe that to be the case. Yes, there'll be times where you have to hold on to that position of authority and, deliver it respectfully and sometimes assertive, but you're definitely not aggressive. At least you're not aggressive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I think you're being hired for your potential. And as like Russ said, there's many different types of individuals that are being hired for their different talents or areas of giftedness that they bring to the table. So like if I was interviewing somebody, I would take into account who they are and then seeing where that could apply in this profession, at least from an elevated perspective, not from like, a myopic view, but rather, this guy has talent. This guy knows how to communicate. Or this guy, man, he got an eye for just finding things. There's just so many different talents that people can help cultivate within that area of giftedness. So again, what we mean by be yourself is, in this profession, if you try to act outside of who you are, you're going to be seen as a fraud pretty quick in the game. Would you agree with that, Russ? I mean, these inmates are pretty keen on seeing, this person's faking it. Like they'll test you. They'll see who you really are.
Oh yeah, you're probably gonna get torn down to some degree by them anyway, regardless of how authentic you are, regardless of what your innate talents might be. And it takes a while to get beyond that. Some of those things, really take time to develop. And so, being inauthentic, not being your real self, trying to, fake things in front of them is going to be really counter to building you into the corrections professional that you need to be.
Yeah, and I like what you just said. I just want to compliment that, because that's 100%. When we talk about be yourself, we're talking about the qualities that put you on that professional road. That's what it is. Those are the qualities that we can help cultivate and help bring you towards. But again, that's what we mean by be yourself. Because again, some people may challenge us and say, well, what if be yourself means that you're corrupt? No, that's not what we're saying. It still has to connect with what the agency is demanding. Because again, cultivating versus transforming. If you don't have the right qualities, then you're not going to be you shouldn't be in the profession anyway. So again, if you're being hired on your greatest potential, it's the potential that aligns with the needs of the agency. So at that point, if you're already in alignment and we're trying to help you grow, then yes, we want you to be yourself, and we want to bring out the best of what it is that you've been hired for. Because again, you are being hired based on your potential. Even as I moved up, just real quick, I want to mention one more thing. Even when I moved up and I started seeking higher positions, sometimes I would look at people who've been doing it for a while and look at it from the end result and say, man, I'm never going to be able to do that. And then someone came up to me and said, Gangi, you're not hired right now, or you weren't promoted right now to know all that. You were promoted because you have the potential to learn it and then add to that based on what your experiences are. So again, you're being hired based on your potential. And when you're being hired by something in that interview that they believe has the greatest potential. So don't try to be someone that you're not because you believe that this profession needs that. Trust me, the people that are hiring you knows exactly what the profession needs, knows exactly what the profession wants, and they're hiring you because you fit that need at that moment based on something that was maybe expressed during the interview process. So again, I think that's a great thing, because a lot of people get concerned that, well, I can't be that person. It's like, well, what kind of person do you think correction requires? And most of the time, like, why to be aggressive and in people's faces all the time? I said, is that, who told you that? Right, Russ? I mean, who honestly told you that?
Yeah.
Who operates like that?
I mean, one thing that you'll find when you get into this profession is there's a time and place for everything. There is a time and place for being hyper aggressive and on top of it, and really sorting the whole shit ball out, so to speak. But that's not every day, all the time. That's one specific incident, that, doesn't happen every day of the week or even more than, once or twice a month. The rest of everything else we do is on that gradient that's somewhere between that and being, I don't want to say weak and understanding, but empathetic and understanding to an inmate, because all of this in one way or another is more or less communication. If you're a one-trick pony and all you have is being hyper ultra aggressive, you're not a good correctional officer. If all you can do is be passive and empathetic, you're not a good correctional officer. So you know what? It's all about balance and knowing where you need to be on the scale in that moment in time in what you're doing.
Yeah, and I like what Russ said. I mean, you can't operate on those extremes anyway. One, on the softer side, if you're too extreme, you're going to get walked on. And on the other side, if you're ultra aggressive all the time, people are just going to ignore you. It's like, okay, this is what he does all the time. I really, all he does is yell. So again, there is that middle ground. So again, you're not, and think about it. If you're aggressive all the time, like some people think we are, you're going to burn yourself out within your first year. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you're going to have gray hair and be stressed. Russ, I love this. I think this is important. I know a lot of people believe that, we got to keep the home life at home and the work life at work. And I agree with part of that. I believe home life should always stay at home. I'm not lying about that. I think that's 100%. But I think there's a certain misunderstanding when it comes to bringing the work life home. I believe there should be some aspect where, and again, this tip is have a good support network in your personal life. The reason why we mention personal life is because that myth of not bringing your work life home because you want to protect your family, I get it. Maybe there's certain things in detail you may not want to share, but if things are affecting you emotionally and you're feeling a certain way, you need to have that support system, because if you don't, you go through changes, it's not going to be beneficial to your family anyway, because all you're going to be doing is closing yourself off. You wind up ignoring them or pushing them away. And the moment you start to realize that and you need their help, they don't even know who you are anymore because you've shifted to the extreme. So I know some people want to say, well, you got to do that, protect the family. Yeah, but I think your loved ones know who you are and they want to be there to help you. So when you start shutting yourself off from their help, I think that actually hurts them more than you may think. What's your thoughts on having that good support network in your personal life, Russ? You've had it. You got a good support right now.
Yeah, it's key. You have to have that support at home, because everything else tends to be possibly chaotic. And if you're trying to deal with chaos at work, because it's always going to be that way there, and then you're trying to deal with lack of vision, lack of support at home, that turns into chaos at home. And then you're never going to be effective in either role on either end of the spectrum. So the things that, you want to cultivate and develop are going to be those things at home that are going to be able to help you support what you're doing at work. And it's as simple as that. Those are the things that tend to crop up, and destroy good careers in the process when they don't have that, and everything falls apart on one end, and then necessarily pretty soon the rock creeps across that chasm and does it on the other end. But I see people claiming all the time, "Oh, just do your 8 and hit the gate." Well, if you do that, you're not a good correctional officer, because it means that you're not out there being proactive, preemptive, and preventative in anything that you're doing. And then it just transfers back to what it is that you're doing at home again, right? Which is nothing. So anyway, that's the way that I view it. You have to try and find a balance. And no one's saying that that's easy, because it's the hardest thing in the world to do. But you just have to be mindful of the things that can creep in and really, really hit you hard. I mean, so many times we see, people in our position, they get lured into, drinking too much, and then, flirting around with substances, even though that's what inmates do. And that's been the downfall of many a potentially great officer.
Yeah, and guys, this is intentional too, by the way. I mean, this comes to your own mental health. So this is something that you can't expect to passively kind of fix itself. You have to be intentional with this, which means that you have to seek people who kind of know who you are before entering this profession. I mean, when I was an officer, this was more about people knowing who I was when I wasn't in uniform. I mean, again, when you're working with your peers, I mean, they can help you too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they'll help get you through it and prepare you for the next, job you got to do in corrections. I mean, that's their role. They want to make sure you're ready to move forward and be that pillar. But your family, you're able to be more vulnerable with, I believe. You're able to express more about how you feel. And then what they do is they truly work on you, just to work on you. They work on your feelings. They work on your emotions. And again, that's why your loved ones are there. They're there because you can be vulnerable with them. Again, I'm not telling my wife, these are the things I saw. But hey, babe, after today, I handled a few things and this is how I feel about it. I don't have to say how I saw the inmate try to kill themselves, but I could say I did see an inmate try to kill themselves today, and this is how I'm processing it. And my wife won't go into too much detail in what exactly I saw, but she generally understands. My wife has a general understanding of, yeah, well, it's not good to see people trying to kill themselves. So she doesn't need to know the specific details, but she does need to know what it is that may be bothering me. And that's where the balance is that Russ said. Russ said the perfect balance. The balance is being vulnerable enough with your loved ones to share what it is that you're going through, but still have that level of protection to not share with them all the details, but to let them know, hey, yeah, but this is what I am going through. And then to sit down and honestly listen to them as they try to work with you. Because in the end, guys, if you start cutting yourself off from their help, you start slowly pushing them away and pushing them away and pushing them away. And then one day you're going to come home and nobody's there. There's nobody there. And I'm sorry. I don't blame the profession for that. I don't. I'm sorry. This is where the intentional effort comes in. I have said this before, and I know it's tough to hear. There are some people that will see crazy things in this profession, and they will make it through however they do it, whether they have a good support system or they just evaluate everything. They give themselves a chance to breathe after each incident, and they just reconnect with themselves. They kind of do an emotional reset. And then there's some that don't do that. They don't make the effort. They keep everything bottled up, and they wind up exploding inwardly, literally inwardly out. And then it's like, okay. And then when you go, it's like, well, I'm not going to bother my family with these things. Or I'm not. Yeah, but it's not bothering them. It's letting them know what's going on with you. So I think the intentional part, to be honest with you, is knowing that you can be vulnerable. Obviously, we all are. And then doing what you can after you face a situation to make sure you're more balanced and you're asking yourself the right questions to keep you motivated, and you're talking to your family to kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I think that is intentional effort. So I know people may say, well, the profession will get to you if you let it. I think what they mean by that is if you passively let this career work its negativity on you, it will, because that's what correction does. It will work its negativity on you, and you will wind up being emotionally withdrawn, just a whole mess of negative. But if you intentionally seek balance and you intentionally seek help when needed, it won't get to you. You won't let it win. You just have to know that in the end, you're fighting a battle that you cannot lose, or you cannot allow. You just cannot allow for that victory to go back to the facility. So it's something you're going to be fighting every day, and having a good network in your personal life will help you deal with it on a more personal level. So yes, I think that's great advice. And I think that's something that you need to have going in. So if you have a strong network, tell your family, hey, listen, I'm going into this profession. These are the things I might have to deal with. I want to know, are you going to be able to support me through this? And I think that's a big help. My wife has always been my supporter, as has Russ's, and it's really made me survive over my 20 years. I literally, I'm okay. I haven't changed, so, and neither is Russ. And trust and believe, neither one of us here has had an easy career. We have seen some things. We have had things happen to us. But in the end, we find balance by knowing exactly where to go to vent and find some level of healing. That's the key. And we're also, one thing about me and Russ that a lot of people may not know, we're very open to our own vulnerabilities. You may see Russ like this brick wall, probably me as, I don't know, probably as Play-Doh. I don't know how the hell people see me, but definitely looking at Russ as a brick wall. But the reason why Russ is that brick wall is because he knows where all that little glue or cement has got to keep things in place. So, and that comes from Russ's great support system. And as for me, the same. Russ, I want you to lead the way on this, but you said we got two more tips or 2 more points. You said that this career can be quite challenging. What are some of the challenges that we may face in corrections?
So, there's just a myriad of things when we start talking about the challenges. But here's the thing that you really need to know is that there's going to be challenges every single day. There's no point at which it lets up. That doesn't mean that, every day is, a complete shitstorm, as it were. But what it does mean is that every day there's going to be a challenge in your way that's going to, try and stop you from doing what you're doing in order to, carry out the safe mission that we do each day, which is to get through it, feed breakfast, run rec, feed lunch, run rec, feed dinner, run rec, as it were. There's going to be confluences of events that are going to try and stop you from doing all of those things. And there's never a time where it lets up. There's never a time where it's easy. This is not for the faint of heart. And so you have to really, steel inside yourself that, okay, today I'm going to get ready. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to make sure that I got everything ready. Everything's in place on my belt. I have all the things that I need. My radio's powered up. I'm ready to go. And you know what? Some days will seem relatively easy, but the days that do seem relatively easy are days that most people couldn't ever imagine handling. So, and that's for so many different reasons. But just know that, there's a bunch of people that we've put in these institutions out here, and they are not in prisons and jails because they're easy to get along with and they are pro-social advocates of the highest order. That's simply not the way it is. Corrections, I often say, corrections is conflict. So just know that you need to, resign yourself to that idea that, hey, today we are going to have some conflict, but we're going to deal with it effectively. We're going to deal with it within the bounds of policy, procedure, state law, case law, every kind of law. And you know what? It's going to be healthy for you in the sense that you're going to be able to see every day as a chance to rise and meet challenges, not get knocked down by them, but you're going to have the chance to rise to challenges and adapt and overcome. And for me, that's what it was all about.
Yeah, I think on the extremes from the anxiety of what could happen to the post-traumatic stress of what has happened, corrections is challenging. I mean, it is extremely challenging, from disrespect to, I don't know, the potential to be assaulted, killed, whatever the case may be, the potential to be mandatory and never have a home life. I mean, there are going to be a lot of challenges. What has helped me was, one, on a higher level, good workplace culture, of course, but knowing that there's a purpose behind everything, knowing that the sacrifices have value, that they're worth it. I mean, it's hard to get appreciation. We're working on that now, let alone recognition. But having said that, knowing that what you're doing has value, has purpose, and then also, be honest with you, going back to the family, sharing that with your family, letting them know the value behind the work. Now, if you believe that your work has value, you can easily translate that to your family, and hopefully they have a level of understanding when you miss out on events or stuff like that that comes naturally with this profession. You're going to miss out on a lot of family events. I mean, this is first responder type work. I mean, you're needed, no different than other law enforcement agencies that are out there. But when you yourself don't believe in the purpose and don't believe in the value, you're not going to be able to translate that to your family when you're missing out on events. So again, you gotta have a greater purpose when you're coming into this profession. What is it that you want to accomplish? And that kind of relates back to the career mindset. What is it that you want to accomplish, and what are you willing to do to accomplish that? If you don't have that purpose in mind, if you don't see this as a career, then, to be honest with you, these challenges, they're going to be very hard to overcome, because you're not going to be able to balance your losses with the ultimate win in the long run. And I think, again, that's one other thing I want to get. Corrections is, even though we deal with a lot of things in the immediate moment, very reactionary sometimes, this is the long term. We're in it for the long haul. And when you don't see things for the long term, challenges will overcome you, because you're not going to be able to see the road ahead, if you will. All you're going to see is what's hitting you in the moment, and then you never really understand in the long run what you're producing step by step. So again, for me, I always had an elevated perspective. I saw things in the longer run. I knew exactly what my purpose is. I know exactly what it is I'm trying to accomplish. And for me, the challenges, I mean, I've learned to become resilient. I don't bounce back. I bounce forward. And I keep trucking, because I know where I have to be. I know exactly where I have to be and how to get there. So what I do is I get through those obstacles, and some harder than others. But for the most part, I know at the end of the day, each obstacle I get past is a small victory onto the bigger win later on in the game. So again, this career can be quite challenging, but it's more so if you don't have purpose or purpose or value for what you're doing. Russ, last one, Russ. And this one hits home, but be prepared to see the real world differently. What does that mean?
Well, I think that I think there's a lot of people out there that view the world one way, and it's because they've never had those blinders removed. What's that movie, They Live, or something like that, where the guy takes puts on the glasses, and he can see that certain people among them are aliens instead, right? That's kind of the way it is in corrections, is that you start getting exposed to the raw elements of humanity, and you can't help but be sharpened by it. Those old ideas about, who's doing what and for what reason start to change, because you start seeing much further into, what the how would I put this? How the particular motivators of certain people are. You start watching inmates starting to manipulate staff, manipulate each other, the things that they're willing to do for power. I've seen inmates, just because they had the power, go out there, hand some youngster that's stupid enough to you buy into that. Yeah, I want to be all about white pride, white power too. Hands him a weapon and goes, go stab that guy over there. And when we bring ourselves with our newfound sight back into the real world, where things are much more diluted, we're still able to see and pick up on those things. And we start to understand just how vulnerable we can be. It's pretty common. I don't sit in any restaurant with my back to the door, unless my wife, has my six at that moment. And you can damn sure know that I know where all of the exits are, and that I know how to, get out of there and do what I need to do to survive. And all of those things can have a negative cumulative effect on your psyche when you know that, a lot of people are just out there and they just want to get over on you one way or another, whether it's they're going to come over to your house later and rip you off because, they managed to, see that you got some nice stuff in there, or whether that someone's just, trying to set you up and manipulate you into a position of disadvantage. And those scales start to come off of your eyes and you start to see that. And some people are not well equipped, not well adapted to be able to deal with that. And so what I would say to you is that just be aware this is going to change you. And you have to decide whether it's going to be a change for the better or whether it's going to be a change for the worse, and what you're going to do about it once you have that information. Once you put those glasses on, you can't unsee what you've seen.
Yeah, for me, it kind of taught me to be skeptical of, sad to say, but good intent. To me, now that when I'm out in the real world, I'm more wary of people that are ultra nice as opposed to a little bit aggressive. For me, I know it sounds crazy, but again, writing a book on manipulation, dealing with manipulators, like Russ said, it's the people that are super nice to me that makes me think they're trying to cover something, and that's not always the case. I mean, maybe that's just who they are. Like the Santa Claus at the mall could just be a nice old man wanting to play Santa Claus. But unfortunately for me, it could be a little something because I work in a world where you're taught to some extent to know that there always could be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, granted, you have to be able to balance that. That's something that they tell you to keep you on your toes, but you have to kind of balance that out. But for me, yeah, sometimes I see naturally good intent as, well, what are they expecting in return? It's just it's the skeptical side of me. I think now for me, like Russ said, and I got to control it. What are the motives behind this nice act? What is this person trying to get in return? Because in our world, that's kind of that's what it's about, right? If an inmate tries to do a favor for you, which should never happen, you should never allow an inmate to do a favor, but why are they trying to do the favor? So you could give them something in return. So again, I'm very skeptical now of people that are very, very nice. And sometimes when you're surrounded by people that haven't worked in this profession, they look at you as if you're the bad guy. Like, why are you being an asshole? It's like, I'm sorry, that's something I just can't turn off. I can't, and I don't know if I want to. Maybe I should, but I'm afraid of turning that off. I mean, and maybe that's on me. Maybe that's my choice that I got to work with. But when I'm around people and they look at me like, yo, that guy was real nice, and you were kind of cold to that person, I'll try to explain to him that, hey, yo, I work in a world sad to say, and maybe this is where I'm wrong, and I got to figure out how to balance this out. But I'm reminded every day that evil exists. And if you have seen what I've seen, and again, I'm not saying this is every inmate, granted, but there are some that, if you've seen what I've seen, then you'd be a bit skeptical too. The people on the outside kind of live in this world where they constantly think, oh, that person will never do it. That person will never do it. Where we live in a world where that person will do it. Like Russ said, that person will do it. And I think there's a conflict when it comes to that train of thought. And having said that, being next to people who don't see the world that way, and we see the world the way it really is. Like, I'll give you an example. One last thing here is that in corrections, and I love for Russ's comment on this, but tell me if this makes sense for Russ. In corrections, we see people, I want to say in the closet, if you will. You know how many people say that, oh, we never know what's in that person's closet? In corrections, we do. We do. We operate in their closet to some extent. So we know who, for the most part, these people are, because our job is to know what they're capable of doing. That's our job. If we don't know what these individuals are capable of doing, then we're not going to be effective in how we control our prisons. So we know what they're capable of doing. Now, the public, maybe they could be at ease without really understanding the capability of what a human could do to another human. And I get it. If that helps you sleep at night, that's great. But granted, for the people that work behind that wall, we don't have that luxury. We know exactly what people are capable of doing, and that sometimes travels with us when we're out in the real world, and sometimes we need to balance that out. But Russ, would you agree we kind of operate in that closet?
Yeah, we get to see what the wolves are like without the sheep's clothing. I guess is the best way to put it. They're operating at the level where they don't have to pretend anymore. Many of them have already been to court. Many of them, have already been sentenced. Maybe not necessarily the case for the jail, but in the jail, they're trying to pander to the forces and the powers that be on the side of the inmates, is what I mean, in their political realm, not our political realm. And so, everything's kind of, exposed out there. And these guys, they're aggressive. Some of them are hostile. Some of them are, openly, just openly assaultive. I was dealing with a situation the other day. Just was not a situation actually, but just discussing with someone about an inmate that they were about ready to transport. And this inmate, for no reason, there had been no conflict between that inmate and the person that was actually, escorting him to a shower. And the inmate just turned around and sliced the guy's face open. No reason. It's just, part of doing business. It's just part of his code, part of his security threat group, where he wanted to make sure that, he got some type of recognition when he showed up, not in the jail that he was at, but in the prison that he was expecting to be sentenced to. And that can be a hard reality for some people. Some people can't get past that, and they are incapable of operating in that kind of environment. For us that have been there, though, I mean, that's just home. That's just every day. That's what our office consists of.
Russ, I want to mention something. So I love what you're saying, and I think this is a great way to kind of balance this thought. In corrections, when I tell people they need to know their inmates, I don't mean they need to know them on a personal level. I mean they need to know what they're capable of. Because any situation could bring out the worst of people. And I think on the outside, a lot of people will be like, well, I know that person. I know that person. I know that person. To be honest with you, knowing that person has nothing to do with what they're capable of. I'm being honest with you. Knowing that person has nothing to do with what they're capable of, because if the right circumstance happens, you never know what that person is willing to do. So again, when I tell my officers or I tell my staff, you got to know these inmates, what I mean by that is you got to know what they're capable of. I don't mean that they have to go around and know that inmate Russ Hamilton is the father of blah, blah, blah on the streets and he was a good father. No, I mean, know what this person's capable of if the right moment happens. That's the key. And I think the conflict on the streets is that a lot of people truly believe that behavior is determined by the inside, which maybe it does have some effect. But I'll be honest with you, most of the time, it could be pressure from a situation. And then you have to ask yourself, what is that person really capable of? Because when you ask someone, it's like, oh my God, I never thought that person would do such a thing because I know them. Yeah, because you spend so much time thinking you know somebody, you kind of minimize all the things that they're doing that's showing you what they're capable of because you're so focused with your head in the clouds about who you think they are. Now, on an adverse to that, you still got to balance that out for us. You know what I mean? There's still got to be a way to balance it out. But having said that, I think for us, we don't get so caught up in who people are and pass good judgment based on who they are, because in the end, in our mind, who they are doesn't always connect to what they're capable of. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, I've had, I've had discussions with a lot of different officers, and different people see things differently. I did a video a while back. Now I can't even remember which one for sure, but it's talking about you need to have an idea about what your inmates are about. Now on a yard that's massive, like some of the ones I was on, where you'd have 800, 900, 1,000 inmates out there, you can't do very much really with that. But by the same token, some of these officers, they were saying, well, I would never look inside any of their files because, I don't want to be, I don't, want my vision about what they're about to be colored. But then I say, but you know what, if you're not sure about what their capabilities are, think about what you're allowing to chance. That really nice guy, Mr. Young and handsome, Ted Bundy, who managed to, escape from 2 different jails and then go on to kill a bunch of girls in that sorority. Maybe if they'd had a better idea about what it was that they were facing, maybe they would have done a better job. Once again, sometimes some people are not equipped to deal with that type of a person.
Yeah, and as I said, it kind of ends on this. I mean, do we really know somebody? And I believe we may think we do, but when we realize what people are really capable of, it makes you go back and question, well, did we really know them? It's like, it's not about knowing them. It's people are capable of doing crazy things, and you have to have some awareness to that. But again, not to the point where you're paranoid, and I think that's where the balance is, but enough to know it exists. That's the key. Hey, Rush, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, we talked about one thing pre-show that I just wanted to bring up because some of this is a little bit more, general to all corrections professionals. This one is more specific, obviously, towards the officers and correctional deputies out there. But before you take this job, you had better know in your heart what it is that you're capable of doing. We talked about what these inmates are, capable of doing and not knowing them. But one thing that you better be, and man, I hate to use this word, comfortable with doing, is the thought that you might have to inflict lethal force on someone. That's always a possibility. It's probably a little bit less so in the corrections version of law enforcement. But I've been present a couple of different times where that has happened. I've seen guys be shot and killed out there on the yard before. And you had better be able to, in the instant that it happens, without having to think about it, mull it over and wonder, what if, and this is what the academy should be teaching you. And this is what you should learn as you get there to your institution, the consequences of taking a human life. And I think that can't be understated. There are things that happen out there on the yards, even deploying chemical agents. There are some people that maybe couldn't do that, or strike an inmate with a baton, or use physical force. So that's something that you have to take into account. And I didn't want to minimize it. I wanted to save it till last, in that it's something that you have to be okay with in your own heart. if it ever happens. And you have to be willing to fulfill that mantle that we're required of in our duty and our oath to protect the public, to protect each other, and protect the inmates as well.
And guys, in corrections, we are decision makers, and sometimes the decisions we make aren't so much based on the information provided, but the experience that we have. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we could do a whole show on that about how experience guides your decision making most of the time, because the stuff we face, there isn't always an immediate answer or enough information to sit on. I mean, the more you wait for information, the shit's moving. It's fluid. So you wind up leaning on experience and then figuring it out from there just to gain some level of control. So be prepared to be a decision maker. As always, guys, the show is Tier Top. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.